The Big Ten and the SEC are holding another round of closed door meetings today ahead of next week's college football playoff meetings. The fate of college football is in the Big Ten's hands. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you don't mind, hit that free subscribe button down below, and we will thank you forever for that. It is free. All right, another Big Ten SEC power grab for the playoffs and beyond. We'll discuss. Urban Meyer had an interesting take on all of this. I'll share that with you as well. And the Oregon Ducks did something better than anybody in college football this year. We'll tell you what that is. Plus, we'll have our power rankings for men's basketball. Hang for that as well. But a couple of weeks ago, we told you how the Big Ten and the SEC, they always seem to meet with each other ahead of time before major decisions. Make sure they're all on the same page before meeting with the rest of college football and other conferences to discuss the possible and likely expansion of the college football playoffs. The two conferences hold all the leverage, and they want to make sure it stays that way, right? They're making money. This is a business. And they met, just the two of them, Big Ten and SEC, the weekend of the national championship. And they're meeting again today, Wednesday, in New Orleans behind closed doors. The future of college football will be shaped by what comes out of today's meeting, and they will discuss the structure for college football moving forward for the playoffs, who gets in, automatic bids by conference, how many, who gets the money, how much. Of course, obviously, all the favorable treatment will go to the Big Ten and the SEC, and of course, the format and the seedings. Pay attention to the seedings, Oregon, right? That's something that'll come out of this conversation as well. But and then they'll be together in a unified force and then meet with the rest of college football and all the conferences and Notre Dame next week to move forward about the college football playoff plan, likely starting in 2026. Kind of locked in to how we're going to do it here in 2025. We'll get to that in a second. But clearly, Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, they're the two most powerful men in college football. And if schools from other conferences don't like what Petitti and Sankey have to say, the Big Ten and the SEC, they can take their ball and go home and do whatever they want. They've got that kind of clout. They've got the money. They've got the TV deals. They got the TV interest. They have the most interesting products on the field. They can do whatever they want. And I believe someday they will do just that. They're going to create a combo super conference, much like the AFC and NFC and the NFL, and play for their own championship. It's just a matter of, not when or if, but when. It's going to happen. It will happen. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And when could come sooner than later, depending on how this meeting goes here today, and then next week's meeting with the rest of college football in Dallas. Interesting take by former Ohio State football coach and Fox analyst Urban Meyer. He said just last week, why in the world would the Big Ten and the SEC share their wealth when they don't have to? They have all the pieces. All right. Everybody else gets the scraps. The Big Ten and the SEC is not meeting today to see how generous we can be to make it fair and equitable for everybody. They're not doing that. They hold all the cards, all the money, and they're not going to let it go. This is not a charity. This is college football. It's big business. All right. And the Big Ten and the SEC are in the driver's seat there. But I thought interesting perspective by Urban Meyer. Now, the Big Ten and the SEC may not get what they want this year, 2025 season, going into the championship January 2026, but maybe the year after that, the 2026 season, because that's when everything kind of resets a little bit. When the 12-team playoff was created, which we just did for the first time, the rules were pretty much locked in stone for the 2024 and 2025 seasons. Any change at all to what they had agreed upon, the format, the football format, it would require a unanimous vote by 10 football FBS conferences and Notre Dame. Again, why Notre Dame has as much power as an entire conference? That's beyond me. You everydayers to this podcast know that's a pet peeve of mine. And hopefully that will change someday. But don't expect any major changes to the 12-team playoff format for this December and this January. The main issue, though, moving forward is where and how to expand the 12-team playoffs. It's expanding. I'll tell you that right now. Been a lot of talk about a 14-team playoff. However, there's been some recent momentum just to go ahead and get it over with and go to 16. So that seems to be the underlying discussion right now. And okay, so there's a lot of momentum for a 16-team playoff, and they're going to expand. And because money and greed lead these decisions, it's going to happen. And again, everydayers to this podcast know my opinion that the bigger the playoffs get, the worse it is for college football. Expansion is just bad. It's a bad idea. We'll get into it again. It's just too much. It's too watered down. We had a lot of blowouts in the college football playoffs when we just had 4 teams. We just had a lot of blowouts in a 12-team format. And along the way, we diminished the importance of regular season games and classic rivalries and conference championships. And the regular bowl games, nobody watches those anymore. And I'm not even going to defend that anymore because that's not as important anymore. But the one thing that college football had over every other sport was the singular importance of every Saturday afternoon. It was a big deal during the regular season. But we go ahead and water that down. Those games don't mean as much because everybody's getting to the playoffs and all play each other again in rematches. That's the crux of my argument there. But, the real decision isn't necessarily about landing on 14 or 16 playoff teams. The real decision here is going to be how many of those spots automatically go to the Big Ten and go to the SEC. All right. That's what Petitti and Sankey are discussing today. And I believe the starting number is 4 each. 4 Big Ten teams, 4 SEC teams automatically in the 14 or 16 team playoff every year. Now, other conferences, they don't like that. They'll bark about that loudly as well. They think it's unfair to everybody else, and they will point out that they don't want to be locked into giving the SEC, for example, 4 playoff spots automatically every year, every single year, because what if the SEC has a down year? Oh, wait a minute. The SEC just had a down year last year. You couldn't make the argument to put 4 SEC teams into the playoffs. You couldn't. And that's going to be the argument here. Maybe someday the Big Ten will have a down year. Probably not. But maybe it will. The Big Ten and the SEC, they're using their leverage to get the biggest payouts from these playoffs. And again, they can get whatever they want here. They can dial this in, or they'll threaten to pull out. You go fine. Go have a playoffs with an ACC that's crumbling and a Big 12, and we'll see how well you do. I mean, everything's all about the SEC and the Big Ten. They've won the majority of the championships that I can think of over the last 25 years because the TV networks, they don't want a Baylor versus Clemson national championship. No offense to those guys, but they want Ohio State or Michigan to be taking on Georgia or Alabama. That's what they want. That's what drives ratings. That's what makes money. Now, critics of these formats will say, ideas like this, they alienate the rest of the country. But does it really alienate the rest of the country? I mean, the Big Ten stretches from the West Coast to the East Coast. It's as far north as Minnesota. It comes down to the Mason-Dixon line. The SEC picks it up from there, and they're spreading west with Oklahoma and Texas. What part of the country is getting alienated under this plan? I don't see it. I don't see it at all. Plus people actually want to see Big Ten and SEC football. Give them what they want. Give the people what they want. Customers are always right. Their conference member teams, they get the highest ratings, Big Ten and SEC, every Saturday. They fill every broadcast window nicely on the networks. So while you hear about next week's college football powwow setting new rules for the future starts today with Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey and the Big Ten and SEC having a little private chit chat. They're pre-meeting, if you will. Thoughts and comments? Let me hear them. Fire it up. Love to hear from you on YouTube. Hey, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free, and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Share, like, and follow if you don't mind. That helps us out as well. Don't forget to hit our website as well, talkbig10.com, number 10. All of our podcasts go there, and you can get merchandise from your favorite schools: Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, shirts, pennants, hats, all that stuff right there. All your Big Ten gear and school spirit right there at our website, talkbig10.com. All right, coming up, some other things I want to talk about here. Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks. They did what no other coach or any other team in the country was able to do. So I'll tell you what that is. Plus, we'll have our men's basketball power rankings. We do that every Wednesday. That's all coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Tax season is here. Let me tell you about Intuit TurboTax. Taxes used to be just getting out piles of paperwork and forms and the waiting and wondering and stressing and worrying whether you're going to get any money back or owe money. Now doing taxes, it's just easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched for your unique tax situation, an expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points with 100% accuracy. So while they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed. All while you just go about your day after you upload all your stuff. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now, this is how taxes roll. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And also, don't forget to check out our website, talkbig10.com. All right. Dan Lanning and the Oregon Ducks, they did something no other coach or school was able to do in the entire country this year. First of all, they worked their tails off. They were not satisfied with just being Big Ten champions and then getting bumped off by the Big Ten's fourth place team, Ohio State, on Ohio State's path to a national championship in the playoffs. Here's what they're doing. Their class of 2025 recruits among the best of the country. The class of 2026, currently right now ranked number 1. Lanning and the Ducks were also strong in the transfer portal, and they've just been getting the best players available to fill all these gaps. So how good were they at all this? Well, the Oregon Ducks were the only school in the country to finish in the top 5 in both high school recruiting rankings and transfer portal recruiting rankings. In fact, the consensus of all the recruiting looks like this. Oregon was the best. Their class of 25 high school recruits ranked 4th. Their transfer portal haul ranked 4th as well, both in the top 5. No other school has done that. Their class of 2025 is highlighted by 3 great defensive backs that are coming in. Of course, the country's top wide receiver in Decorian Moore. So you got another guy to fill in where Tez Johnson left off. Their portal haul, including the best available at several positions. There was Mekhi Hughes, running back, who we talked about on this podcast. We also talked about offensive tackle Isaiah World. He is humongous, a giant of a man. Number 1 overall player available. Oregon got him. And there was safety Dylan Thieneman, who we've mentioned numerous times on this podcast. Big fans of his when he played safety at Purdue for 2 years. Now he's coming to Oregon, got a couple more years of eligibility. That was a great get. You add up all these guys. These are the best guys at their positions. These are the best guys in the portal coming into Oregon, mixing it with the great recruiting class coming in. That's why Oregon had the best offseason in all of college football, not just the Big Ten. And when a coach can remain elite by bringing the best young talent and also filling gaps with the best experienced players into portal, chances are strong that a program like Oregon, it never dips. There's never any up and down. They just up, and that's just where they stay. Always competing for championships. Never having a down year. That's what Nick Saban did at Alabama. It's what Kirby does at Georgia. So never have a down year. You're always good and remaining competitive. So now Oregon will continue to make runs for Big Ten titles and national championships. By the way, if you're curious as to how anybody else did, LSU was the next combo ranked school, 9th in recruiting, 6th overall in the portal. There was Big Ten blue blood Michigan. They were the 3rd team, best team combined, 6th in recruiting. Remember, Bryce Underwood got him to flip. All that $12 million in nil money helped. 10th in the portal. So Michigan, the 4th best team in the country when you combine recruiting and the portal, was Auburn. They were 8th and 9th, respectively, there. And Texas A&M was 7th in recruiting, 8th in the portal to round out the top 5. So again, when you combine recruiting and transfer portal, Oregon number 1 in the country. LSU was 2nd, Michigan 3rd, Auburn 4th, Texas A&M 5th. Pretty good. All right, while we're highlighting teams and players, let's highlight the players of the week. We like to do this in the middle of the week. The Big Ten puts these out. Basketball, player of the week, John Tanje, again, of Wisconsin. 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists in the Badgers' 94-84 win over Purdue, at Purdue, by the way. That was pretty impressive. He shot 10 of 15 from the floor, including 4 of 9 from three-point range and 8 of 9 from the free throw stripe, and 41 points versus number 9 Arizona. Tanje is the nation's only player to post multiple 30-point games versus top 10 opponents this year. Great job by him. Freshman of the week in the Big Ten. We've talked about this kid before. Derek Queen out of Maryland. This is a 6'10 center. He was 9 out of 11 from the field in a 24-point, 11-rebound performance in their 83-75 win at Nebraska. He also had 18 points and 13 rebounds in a 101-75 win over Iowa. Iowa's given up some points lately. He's also this is his 5th Freshman of the Week award. He's probably going to be Freshman of the Year in the Big Ten, and he got the Freshman of the Week award last week, if his name sounds familiar to you. We talk about him here. All right, over to the ladies. Big Ten Player of the Week, Juju Watkins at USC. Phenomenal. 38 points, 11 rebounds, 8 blocks, and 5 assists in their upset win of number 1 UCLA. 8 blocks now. Her 8 blocks were a new career high, tied for 3rd most in a game by a Trojan. It was USC's first win over an AP top-ranked opponent since 1983. That was a long time ago. Put up 17 points, 8 boards, and 6 assists and a steal at Washington, and this is the 5th Big Ten Player of the Week award in her career. Also, the women do weekly honor rolls. Lucy Olson at Iowa, almost 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists and 2 steals per game in Iowa's 2 wins this week. Cody McMahon over Ohio State. She's got a game-high 25 points, 10 of 16 shooting to lift Ohio State past Minnesota. And Adalia McKenzie out of Illinois led Illinois to 2 victories, averaging 21 points, 8 boards, 4.5 assists, and 2.5 steals. So congratulations to all of them. And let's not forget the Big Ten Women's Freshman of the Week, Ava Watson over at Ohio State. Scored 16 points off the bench and recorded a pair of steals in 18 minutes of action against Minnesota and went 5 out of 6 from the floor. Perfect 4 for 4 from behind the arc. So the future is bright for her at Ohio State. Speaking of hoops, big schedule here Wednesday night I want to let you know about. I got 3 men's games to tell you about, all on the Big Ten Network. Triple header tonight. Nebraska is at Penn State. That's at 6:30 Eastern. Oregon is at Iowa, 8:30 Eastern, and Rutgers is out west at Washington, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. All these on the Big Ten Network. As far as the women go, Minnesota is at Purdue. That's a 7 o'clock Eastern tip on Big Ten Plus. Oregon is at Nebraska, 8 o'clock Eastern on Big Ten Plus. And then here's the big one tonight. 22nd Michigan State, 22nd ranked Michigan State at number 4 USC. That's 9:30 Eastern for those of you in East Lansing, 6:30 Pacific for those of you in Los Angeles. That'll be on Peacock. So big women's game with Michigan State and USC out on the West Coast later on tonight. So that's the schedule as well. All right, coming up, back to men's basketball for a minute. We're winding down February. We're getting close to March Madness. It's time for our weekly power rankings. We did some different things the last couple of weeks. We're going to go back to ranking the men's basketball standings as we see them. That's all coming up next. Want you to hang around for that. And then, of course, let me know if you think we got any wrong in the comment section, and maybe you would rank a team higher or not. We'll do that just in a minute. Our power rankings here on Locked On Big Ten. Stay with us. Back on Locked On Big Ten, let's take a look at our power rankings for men's basketball as we see it. I'm going to put it on screen. If you're audio only, we'll describe in detail how we got to where we're at with this list. And whoops, a sneak peek at what the back 10 look like. All right, here we go. Number 1, Michigan. First place, Michigan. Dusty May has got this team turned around. And I think they're the best team in the Big Ten right now. Scariest team to play. By the way, you can take these first 3 or 4, 5. You can interchange them. And by the way, also, they're all going to be playing each other in the next couple of weeks. So things are about to get really interesting in the Big Ten standings. So, in fact, Michigan takes on Michigan State twice coming up. They got a game against Maryland coming up. This is all going to have the potential to be shaken up. I got the Wisconsin Badgers at number 2. Their win against Purdue, at Purdue, I mentioned that a moment ago, was not only phenomenal, it was like the most efficient effort in college basketball history. They were 20 of 22 inside the arc, just shooting and 2-point jumpers. A lost art, I might say. Wisconsin, really good there. Second best team. I got Michigan State at number 3, maybe only because they had that loss to Indiana. They lost 3 out of 4 at one time after getting off to an 18-2 start. They did bounce back this weekend and beat Illinois. Tom Izzo passed Bob Knight for the most Big Ten wins as a head coach. But Michigan State, they still have Purdue, the 2 against Michigan I mentioned. They got Maryland. They got Wisconsin, all in on the schedule for Tom Izzo. This is not going to be easy for Michigan State to close this out. I got Maryland at number 4. They had a good week. And they had wins over Nebraska and Iowa. They scored over 100 against Iowa. In fact, they won those 2 games by 34 points. They got Purdue at number 5. Matt Painter, look, man, they had a couple losses here. Michigan and Wisconsin. So a little bit of a stumbling here in mid-February for the Boilermakers, but still in good shape. They're going to do just fine and get in the tournament and do all that. Illinois at number 6. I mentioned the loss Saturday to Tom Izzo and Michigan State. By the way, I should also penalize them. Did you see Terrence Shannon Jr. came back to have his jersey retired? They hung it in the rafters and unveiled it. It came down. It was upside down. Huge embarrassment by the Fighting Illini. But Brad Underwood's team just inconsistent all year. Always very good, but inconsistent. That's a team that could get red hot and get on a roll, or they could lose one they shouldn't real early. I got UCLA coming in next at number 7. Mick Cronin, ever since he chewed out his team publicly, called them soft, they won 7 in a row. Then they had a loss to Illinois. Then they beat IU in Bloomington. So I got UCLA at number 7. Got Ohio State at number 8. They had that loss to Michigan over the weekend. Oh, Ohio State. You lose to Michigan in football and now in basketball. Ugh. It's tough. Oregon at number 9. They were much better earlier this year. They were ranked. Then they lost 5 in a row. Then they won 2 in a row. It was Northwestern and Rutgers. Maybe Oregon can settle that down a little bit. And I've got Minnesota coming in at number 10, rounding out the top 10. They've had, again, Minnesota has shown some signs of life. They have wins against Michigan and Oregon back when they were, ranked. USC on the road this weekend, I thought was an impressive win. So again, they were not good earlier this year, but they're starting to put a few signs of life together. Let's take a look at the rest, the best of the rest, if you will, in our weekly power rankings here on Locked On Big Ten. I got the USC Trojans, Eric Musselman's team, sitting at number 11. Again, they just lost that game to Minnesota, so I had to rank them below Minnesota. I just felt like it. Indiana, struggling despite the win against Michigan State. That's about the only bright spot they've had in the last several weeks. Got them at number 12. Iowa at number 13. Absolutely no defense to speak of here. Their offense was coming along. They gave up 100 points twice already this year. Did it against Maryland. Owen Freeman out for the season. He's their leading scorer. So now their offense is going to hurt. Just a long, tough season for Iowa. I got Rutgers at number 14. This is a team that has two potential top 5 picks, top 10 NBA picks, lottery picks in their roster, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, and they can't quite put it together. I have Rutgers at number 15 this week. I have a lot of respect for Fred Hoiberg. They won a game against Northwestern in which they were down by 20. They just kept fighting. They got Michigan next week. We'll see how they do. Northwestern at number 16. Don't forget their guard, Brooks Barnheiser, is hurt. This is the team that I just mentioned that blew the 20-point lead to Nebraska on Sunday, so not good. Washington had been on the bottom of our list before. I moved them up 1 because they recently beat Penn State, so I put Penn State in the bottom below them. Penn State has a stretch where they lost 11 of 12, and Penn State basketball rounding out the bottom. So that's it. Those are our power rankings here for the middle of the week. Let me know if we got any wrong or underrated or overrated anybody. Love to hear from you in the comments as well. We do power rankings every Wednesday on this show, one kind of power ranking or another. Many ways for you to interact with this podcast. First of all, there's X, Twitter, at TalkBig10, number 10. Don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there. And then you can also, there are links for you to go ahead and buy merchandise from your favorite teams, shirts, t-shirts, and hats from your favorite Big Ten teams right there. Before you listen to another episode of Locked On Big Ten and get caught up, hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. It's free. And you can follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app and to get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. That was fun. That was fast. Can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow. Tell your friends about us. If you know friends or family members that are Big Ten alum or fans, let them know we're out here every day. Big Ten news, Big Ten breaking news, Big Ten analysis, Big Ten opinion. This is the only place you get all of that. Right here under one umbrella here at Locked On Big Ten. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for checking us out.